Martin Luther King was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. Martin Jr. was a middle child between an older sister, Willie Christine King, and a younger brother, Alfred Daniel Williams King. King attended Booker T. Washington High School, a precocious student. He skipped both the 9th and the 12th grade and entered Morehouse College. In 1948, he graduated from Morehouse with a Bachelor of Art degree in Sociology and enrolled in Chester Cruiser Theological Seminary, Pennsylvania, from which he graduated with a Bachelor of Divinity degree in 1951. King became pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama when he was 25 years old. King then began doctoral studies in systematic theology and received his Doctor of Philosophy on June 5, 1955, with a dissertation on a comparison of the conceptions of God in thinking of Paul Tillich and Henry Nelson Wyman. King was influenced by Howard Thurman, Abraham Lincoln, Gandhi, Benjamin Mice, Hosea Williams, Bayard Rustin, Henry David, and Leo Tolstoy. King married Coretta Scott on June 18, 1953. They became the parents of 4 children: Yolanda King, Martin Luther King III, Dexter Scott King, and Bernice King. Dr. King is widely regarded as America's preeminent advocate of nonviolence and one of the greatest nonviolent leaders in world history. Dr. King led a nonviolent movement in the late 1950s and 60s to achieve legal equality for African Americans in the United States, while others were advocating for freedom by any means necessary, including violence. Martin Luther King Jr. used the power of words and acts of nonviolent resistance. In 1955, he was recruited to serve as a spokesman for the Montgomery bus boycott, which was a campaign by the African American population of Montgomery, Alabama, to force integration of the city's bus lines. In 1957, Dr. King was elected president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization designed to provide new leadership for the now burgeoning civil rights movement. In 1963, he led a coalition of numerous civil rights groups in a nonviolent campaign aimed at Birmingham, Alabama, which at the time was described as the most segregated city in America. Later, brutality of the city's police, illustrated most vividly by television images of young blacks being assaulted by dogs and water hoses. Later in 1963, Dr. King was one of the driving forces behind the March for Jobs and Freedom, more commonly known as the March on Washington, which drew over 250,000 people to the National Mall. It was at this march that Dr. King delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Dr. King was later named Time magazine's Man of the Year. In 1964, at 35 years old, Martin Luther King Jr. became the youngest person to win the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1965, Congress went on to pass the Voting Rights Act, which was an equally important set of laws that eliminated the remaining barriers to voting for African Americans. Between 1965 and 1968, Dr. King shifted his focus toward economic justice, which he highlighted by leading several campaigns in Chicago, Illinois, and international peace, which he championed by speaking out strongly against the Vietnam War. On the evening of April 4, 1968, while standing on the balcony of his motel room in Memphis, Tennessee, where he was to lead a protest march in sympathy with striking garbage workers of the city, he was assassinated. The shooter, a malcontent drifter and a former convict named James R. Ray, was eventually apprehended after a 2-month international manhunt. The killing sparked riots and demonstrations in more than 100 cities across the country.